So what did you think about yesterday? Do you think that what we are discussing was approachable, that it was useful for your work?
I think it was useful, especially that we didn't have a chance or we didn't have an opportunity to learn, you know, more about the M&Es, the tools, and especially the new term of the theory of change. So I
You found it?
Yeah, so for me, I think it was very useful because we did have an opportunity to understand new things, but at the same time, I think most importantly is to learn like new term, which is like the theory of change, and I think that many of us agreed on that.
And about the theory of change, do you think that, do you already see how it could be useful for your work? We're going to talk more about it today, but have you already felt that it provides you with some clarity with the way you approach your projects?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because for me, I think that theory of change can help you to frame your work and to better understand what you are doing, and especially the goals that your program or your project aiming to achieve. And I think it's for me, it's a very useful thing to do. Yes.
So we are not done with the theory of change. We're going to keep on working on. We're going to look back into the exercise we started yesterday. So anyone has any feedback about yesterday, first day? Is there any questions that you would like me to address beforehand? I will assume that there is no question.
Excuse me, I just have one question.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, it has, you mentioned this earlier and like yesterday, but one of the main things of monitoring is identifying the needs of your community, like the target that you are working with, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we have ideas of projects, and I don't know how to frame it, but like we have ideas of projects, but we have to talk to the community, for example, to the target, and ask them whether that project will fit them or no. And I want to know like how can we make it like useful this way. For example, I can think of a project because I know that would benefit that target. For example, if I ask them what are their needs, whether it's gonna be helpful for them or no, what if they say no? Like what if they change the whole concept of the project that I came up with?
Well, that's already that happens quite a lot actually, but that also tells you about the way you design that project in the first hand. There must have been some adjustment that needed to be done prior to starting your activities. But if you end up in a situation where suddenly everything has changed, right? Like your community is telling you, well, we don't want this anymore. It's not helpful for us. It will be useful for you to dig into understanding why they are saying that. Is it an issue about the messenger? Is it about the organization who is undertaking that project, and have they lost credibility into that community? Is it a question about the definition of the concept that you have been using for that project? For example, empowerment. You started with an idea of what empowerment could mean, and when you presented that idea to your beneficiaries, they told you, no, we don't want that kind of empowerment. This is not what we want. Fine. But deconstruct that idea of empowerment with them and make this your project. Because what you don't want is to stop any initiative, but you want to keep on progressing. But your definition of progress will have to change then. And you can integrate it into your revision of the design of your project. And if you end up in a situation, which can happen, where the whole theory of change was wrong, and you inherited from a project that you had no control with, but then you're stuck with it, and your organization is telling you, okay, so now you have to continue it, you have to finish it. I would recommend you to go talk to the donor and to explain to them that the first idea your organization and the donor had about that community and the way they define progress and development was skewed. However, this is the alternative. So donors are usually very happy to hear feedback as long as you're bringing an alternative. And it always works in your favor if you bring that alternative as early as possible. And I came across that situation with one project. In one project, we're working with a very vulnerable community, and we started that project thinking that their relationship with violence was due to one specific aspect. And me and the project manager went to do the baseline. So we went to research all the sites of that of where this community lived, and we asked the question. So we just gather raw data, trying to understand whether our hypothesis at the start was right. We realized we were completely wrong, and the organization was wrong, and the donor was wrong, and there was a lot of money involved. So we went to the director of our organization and exposed to that person the issue. The reaction was not very positive, because we are exposing a problem. We're telling that person that basically that contract that was signed was flawed, and the organization could lose a lot of money. And I will put aside the relationship this tension created, but it was resolved. At the end, the story was resolved because the project manager has helped, and with me, we worked together. We really worked intensely on finding the alternative to continue helping that community towards a goal that is close to the first goal that we were defining. And we created a file exposing that alternative. And the project manager, the director, and me went to present this file, this alternative, to the donor. My role in that meeting was to provide the evidence for that alternative and to tell to the donor, we actually have done research and I have data to show you that that first idea cannot work. But these are the data that show you as well that that second idea may work better. That comforted the rest of the team. That helped the project manager to defend her project, and that helped the director to defend the organization. So each one of us were playing a part into this construction of a new project midterm. And that was a success. It actually ended up one of my favorite project I've been working on, because everyone learned so much. So this situation will happen. It's healthy if it happens. Your role as project manager, M&E officer, director of organization, what have you, whatever your role is at the moment, is to make sure that that situation is being known at the earliest stage as possible. And your second role will be to present that change into a positive light, meaning that we know that this is not working, but now we also know that this could be working. And this is the entire spirit of research and scientific methods. It's through experience, knowing what is not working, to be able to define better what is working. So does that answer your question, Sued?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so don't be afraid if this situation happens, embrace it. But know that you have solutions for it, And it's all about narrative. It's all about how you portray your story. If you guys are fans of TED Talk, if you listen to them, you see how the speaker have this amazing and impressive talent to be able to tell us about stories that are not that positive, but they can teach us something about it. And this is the purpose of learning by doing. So this is what we are expecting from you guys. We're expecting you to tell us what you learn by your experience. This is why you're experts in your fields, each one of you.
Can I follow up on what Layla's saying as a donor? It's really important to base your hypotheses and your theory of change on data. And if the data changes, then your theory of change or your hypothesis should change. And I know it's difficult sometimes to tell somebody in a position of authority, I don't think this is, you know, I wouldn't even say I don't think, I'd say the data doesn't support this anymore. Or the data was not existent in the first place. The original idea was not based on data. Now we have data and this is what the data says. But what I would advise you is, you know, put it on the data. Don't say, I think, I know, but be objective and let the data speak for you. And the other point I would say is, as leaders of organizations or even project managers, you really want to be open to the data changing your mind. And that is sometimes hard, but we have to follow by example. We have to lead by example. And if we don't accept, you know, the data changing, if we don't let the data change our mind, then we can expect people working with us to do the same. And I think it goes really back to this idea of people being smart, you know, or people being educated. And I would like to get us to think differently, that we're all capable of learning. Some of us have, you know, different skills or affinities, but all of us can adapt. And I think that if we start thinking of ourselves or others as being smart or educated, that can actually stop learning from happening. So I would encourage all of us to say, hey, yeah, I'm smart. Everyone else is smart. You know, we're all learning animals. And think of it that way rather than I have a degree, I know this, I'm an expert, because that can make you very resistant to learning and change. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Project.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Mind. Yes, Abdelaziz.
Yeah, actually, now, don't you think that the project idea actually should come from the community and not for them? The work should be with, let's say, the community and not for them. In Core Africa, in my experience with Core Africa, actually, we spent more time in defining the project ideas. So then the next step will be to implement those projects. And I think based on our, let's say, small experience, we didn't face such problem because the community always feel that the project idea is their project, their idea, their surrounding, their space. Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely the project should come from the community, and the community should have that space to express themselves, to be able to formulate what they need. There are sometimes areas where community are not aware that their issue is a part of a bigger problem, and that a wider action, an action at a larger scale is needed to make sure that the issue of the specific issue lived by that community can be addressed, and at the same time that another community as well may not be impacted by the resolution of what troubled them. So it's all about views as well. If you're working on a small scale project with a very short timeline, you will see the impact created very quickly. Beneficiaries have their need responded, end of story. But when you're looking at the way that small scale problem connects with a larger issue, then you see that you need longer action, more collaboration. And for that, community, because they are inside, because they are the first one to be affected, may not be in the best position to tell you explicitly, my issue of water access is actually linked to the way corporate are being responsibilized. It's about law on corporate responsibility. And they do not see that. For them, it's just a matter of having their access to the river, to have an access to the river. But they do not see that it is linked to a debate at the parliament. But you in your position could see that, and you could act on that. So it all depends about the way you listen to, it's a dialogue. You listen to the communities, but you also listen to the rhythm of the environment, the larger environment. This is what distinguishes monitoring from evaluation. When you will be doing an evaluation of your work, you are going to start analyzing how your work for that community can be linked to other issues. And for that, you can rely on research, experts' point of view, who can help you orientate your action so that you respond to the community needs, you translate what they wanted you to do, and at the same time, you make sure that your action is sustainable, that it lasts beyond the community. Does that provide you, because what you were saying, Abdelaziz, was exactly right and very correct. But I just wanted also to show you that there is other dimension that enables you to look for answers also beyond the community, but how the community is integrated within a wider environment. Do you agree, Abdelaziz?
Yes, you are right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Is there any question? Is there any other question or comments, or someone who wants to share his or her experience? Yes, guys, so let's go back into I would like to go back to the exercise we started yesterday with the 4 groups working on theory of change. So we heard about one theory of change yesterday, and I want to hear more. So are there any volunteers to present to us their theory of change?
Our topic was women related issues. I don't know if it's protecting women. No. So it's women issues. We chose this topic of domestic violence and abuse, and we I don't know if we followed the theory of change of yesterday pretty well, I think, because we didn't understand it well. But we thought of doing a psychological follow-up with the beneficiaries, and
Let's go back into the sentence that we are using, the sentence that helps you frame that theory of change. If, then, because.
We didn't do it.
So you know what, maybe guys, we're going to break you into rooms again. I'm gonna leave you 5 more minutes just to combine your ideas and finalize the theory of change. and reconvene in a short while to hear you. Would that work? Everybody's talking at the same time, so I don't hear everyone.
Yes, yes.
The time, please. Too much. Okay. So let's go back into the rooms and let's give ourselves 5 minutes to finalize our theory of change. Who
Yeah.
is the first group and wants to present their theory of change?
نبداو من الجروب 4.
Yes, perfect. مربعة.
يا باش ما نبداوش من الاول، بدينا البارح من الاول، هذه المره نبداو من التحت. سو الجروب 4 فيه حسين وخولة وزينب عبد الرحيم. Group 4, go ahead.
Oh, so I thought Hussein would say, but I'm just going to say the sentence is, if we support young candidates during elections, then more youth will show up to vote because they are more likely to trust their peers.
Okay. What do you guys think about the theory of change?
We think it's good.
Do you think that they are portraying a project that can work? Is it true that more youth will trust peers, people of their age, and that will entice them to vote more? Any reaction?
Can she repeat
Yeah.
please?
Maybe you can write it on the chat so also everyone can read it.
I'll write it on the chat and I'm going to say it again, I guess. Wait.
I see that Majda says I would, so it's good.
If we support young candidates during elections, then more youth will show up to vote because they are more likely to trust their peers.
So if you have young candidates?
If we support young candidates during elections, then more youth will show up to vote because they are more likely to trust their peers.
So from this already, thank you, Khawla, this is a great theory of change. From that theory of change, I already understand what is the problem. She's trying to tackle the issue of abstention, youth abstention. And her theory, remember it's a theory, is to consider that young people do not vote because they do not feel represented by candidates. Candidates do not represent their age group. So if we get younger candidates, then we are able to get much more interaction from young people. And there are studies that support that theory. So this is great. This is a great starting point. And that could lead to a big project where she would work with local officials, young politicians, political parties. And at the same time, it's a safe space because she's not working on the political discourse. She's much more working on the structure. So her action, her intervention will be to create a structure that enables, welcomes youth into voting. And that's how when I read her theory of change, I'm thinking, okay, this is actionable. This is something that can be actionable. We can debate whether it is true or not. The project will tell us. At the end of the project, when we will check the result, we will know whether it was true, whether young people do not vote because they do not feel that candidates represent their age group. But it's still a theory that is worth digging and investigating. Is there any question about the theory of change? Any comments? Do you has any of you has any other point of view about that?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead, Abdel.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just in terms of being in specific US, in Tunisia, or what's the targets? I mean, if you are talking in Morocco, we have a quota of youth, and this quota is not that big as much as it should be to encourage people or young people to vote.
You already have a quota of young people represented in the parliament. Is that what you're saying? Okay, I saw your answer on the chat. Okay, and that doesn't, right, so this is good. So we're working towards digging more into a road. So let's see. Apparently there was something that was done to correct that, to encourage youth to vote more. Having the quota in the political institutions, great, but it's still not working. Would it be about the communication, the way those young people communicate with youth? That will be what will Khawla and the team will work on. But at least they start with the theory of change. We have been working on the theory of changes in 5 minutes. So of course, we can have then different studies. We can do more research into the studies, trying to find to what extent this has been tried before or not. But at least it's a good start. We have a causation link that is happening. Okay? So you're right, Abdelillah. Yeah, it's you're making an excellent point. We already have a quota and it's still not working. So where is the problem lying? And this is for you, Khawla, and your team to find out. But by creating this causal relationship. Okay. Any other comments? So maybe we can move on to the next group. Group number 3, maybe, Omar, or?
Yeah, the group number 3 is with Abdelaziz, Suad.
So I give you the go ahead.
Our theory of change is if rural abused women who are not financially independent develop entrepreneurial skills, then they will be financially independent, because financial stability ensures women standing up for their rights.
So if a rural woman, unemployed, right?
Yeah. Develop entrepreneurial skills.
Develop entrepreneurial. I'm writing it on the chat. Then
they will be financially independent.
Because?
Financial stability ensures women standing up for their rights.
Financial stability ensures standing up for rights. Do you all agree with that theory of change? I wrote it down on the chat. So if we give training, right, to women who are unemployed at the moment, victim of abuse, they will be financially independent. So if I give training to someone, they will be financially independent. Do we see a direct causation there?
They are more likely to create like projects.
They are more likely to create projects, or they are better equipped to obtain a job, right?
Yes.
So they would be better equipped, they would have the right equipment, but then they would still do some work to be able to get a job, because financial stability ensures standing up for your rights. For this, you have to think again and again, is it, what am I saying? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? So that sentence, because there is the assumption that one of the issues of standing up for your right is about finances. This is quite debatable in itself. One could argue that the reason the ability to stand for your right is not necessarily an issue of money. It's into of being aware of your right, having access, having access to entities that protect you, having the support, this community support that will help you defend your rights or promote your rights. So you may be in a very financially advantaged position, but if the community doesn't support you to defend your right, you may still be a victim. So this is where I would have an issue with your theory of change, because there are some assumptions that have been made that can easily be deconstructed. But I see what you're trying to get at. I see what is the spirit behind it, that you want to provide and equip women who do not have access to specific knowledge more opportunity. But I'm afraid that with that project, you are not able to control the opportunities that will be created from those skills. Because you may have provided them skills, but then they end up in another form of exploitation with a corporate, with a company, with a bigger company, a factory, or so on. So this needs a little bit more reworking to make sure that it's the most bulletproof as possible. Unless you have something to say, Suaed or Hatim, would you like to defend your theory of change? Or refine it, make it more precise?
So here, where we said abused women, we mainly targeted those who are abused by their families and their husbands. So it's like on a first stage, they need to escape that violence through the financial stability.
And Suaid, I am aware that you're working with the Amal Foundation, right?
Yeah, I'm a women's center.
Can you explain to us what is the work that you guys are doing?
So ML is a nonprofit organization that does, professional training for women in culinary arts. These women are from disadvantaged backgrounds. They are divorced, orphans, widows, single mothers, and they don't have a specific educational background. So we target those who didn't have opportunities to either study or finish their studies and had a difficult, life, and can't, didn't have opportunities in the society. So through the culinary arts training, they learn everything that's related to, restaurant industry, and they get trained here. And at the end of the training, we make sure to find them jobs in the restaurant industry here in Marrakesh, so they become financially independent. So the economical independence is the main goal of this whole training.
Okay, I was taking some notes while you were speaking, so thank you very much for this presentation. And what struck me was that the ML Foundation is having a theory of change model. It provides training to uneducated women living in marginalized neighborhood. So it doesn't target specifically any group within that marginalized neighborhood beyond the uneducated one, the one that wants to learn but didn't have the opportunity to. And what you guys are doing, you're providing employable skills. Once a woman comes out of your center, they can be employed quickly because they have a skill that they can sell, making food, restoration. And in the area of Marrakesh, we know that this is a very profitable area. It's a profitable sector. So we are in an urban area, and we are providing women with employable skills that respond to that area. And then the organization also support them in finding a job. So what you're doing is providing a full package of those women. You're accompanying them from education to job obtention in urban area. But if we're thinking of rural areas, do you think that if we bring Amal Center AMAL traineeship in rural areas, it would work as well.
No, not in the same way.
Why? What would be the issue?
The issue will be where these women will work afterwards.
Exactly.
There won't be any job opportunities where they are.
So you see what is the issue here already with your theory of change. You're talking about rural areas, providing them with entrepreneurial skills. But what if they keep on staying isolated within their areas? And you want to tackle the issue of domestic abuse. Maybe an action that, an intervention that could be more actionable if you work, it would be if you work with the community to provide a support system for those women, so that that community in the rural area, who is having its code, who has its job opportunity, its very specific job opportunity, could help those women coming out of their predicament. So here it's about providing to the community you're addressing the answer that would provide the resolution to their issue.
Maybe like creating cooperatives, because when we said here entrepreneurial skills, it could be like them creating a cooperative in the field they are good at or what it's good in their area.
Again, it would require some more research into the link between abuse and financial stability. Because in those areas, if you're providing an answer through financial stability where there is their system of abuse is related to another architecture, which is much more linked to patriarchy, system of property, land property, that could lead you to see where the actual answer could be, or where you could actually do something. I'm going just to address the question of Yusra. Yusra asked, is the theory of change sort of a loop? Like we have to ask the question many times to reach the core activity we need to. For example, if we X, then Y, because Y is dependent to X. Then if Z, then Y can happen because, and so on and so on. Until we reach the one main thing that we need to start with. Better spoken than written. Okay. Yeah. I should stop reading at some point. But yes, exactly, Yusra. And this is the point I'm trying to say to Suad as well. You need to keep on asking yourself this question constantly and thinking, okay, am I doing the right thing? Would there be something better, more effective that could be done as well? And you keep on asking and brainstorming and punching your brain on it until you find that final solution that can help your community.
Then maybe Leila, you can tell us what questions we can ask for the F and for the then and for the because.
What is the root of violence? Why are those women stuck in a system of violence? What do they have now that keep them in a situation of abuse? Do they need financial stability? You keep on asking yourself this question. You keep on questioning everything like you don't know anything, as if you don't want to help those people. You want to find any excuse to not help them, until you realize that actually you cannot you cannot avoid the solution. It is there. And also you educate yourself on the issue. You start to read, you read their testimonies, you ask them, and if you don't know, and if nobody knows, then you go to that community and ask them, how many of those women are abused? Why are they abused? In some areas, some of the women are abused because they own the land. So the men want to keep a control and a domination over the women. So the right to property is the issue. On the contrary, in other areas, women have been their land right not being recognized. So you will see that actually your question about domestic abuse is related to a status recognition. And that will help you. I do not have the answer, and I'm really happy, Sued, to keep that conversation with you afterwards if you're interested in that topic, so we can brainstorm together, because it's a very interesting topic. But I just wanted to use this as an example to show you that the theory of change is the beginning of your inquiry. Now,
Thank you.
yeah, so let's keep talking about this after this training. Really, please, like we have each other number, so let's do that. Maybe we can move to the next group, just as a matter of time.
The next group is the group 2, and it's with Majda, Hassan, and Aisha. So Hassan, we can't hear you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So basically what we discussed is we said if we provide iPads with locked applications to students, then the students will have access to classes remotely. This is assuming, of course, the concept or the situation of COVID-19, when students don't have access to the internet and they don't have access also to the classroom. So to give them access to these classes, we said that we will provide them with iPads that have locked applications. That means you have to finish chapter 1 to move to chapter 2. And if you don't finish, then you cannot move forward. Experience some difficulties, the only way will be to get in touch with their teachers by phone. Or my colleague Aisha proposed that we use like a private network if we have enough resources.
I'm writing the theory of change on the chat. They do not have access to internet.
And they cannot be in classrooms.
Then children do not have access.
Then we'll provide them with the iPads with locked up application, because that way they can access their classes without needing the internet connection.
Because, what is the because? Because,
Hassan has the internet connection issues.
Because COVID-19 will impact on their ability to go to classrooms. I think that could be a theory of change. So if we distribute iPads to children, then children who do not have access to internet can continue their education, because COVID-19 impact on their ability to physically go to a classroom. So that could be an alternative. And then in the mode, having these lock apps and so on, that will be in the mode of delivery that makes sure that your theory of change is bulletproof. So this is great. This is something that is actionable. We just would need to define who are those children, how many iPads you would need. Because again, for a donor, he would think, okay, are we distributing things to all the children in Morocco, migrant children, children in rural areas, children in poor neighborhood? So it's up to you guys, but that will help you direct your budget as well, and how much money you will need and what is expected from the donor.
Leila, I think there is a small, I didn't get it, because you say that if we distribute iPads to children, then children who do not have access to internet, they don't have access to internet, and we give them iPads.
But that's what
so we can say instead of who don't have access to internet, who don't have access like to go to school or to education.
So because Hassan was also, Hassan, you can justify how it would work.
I didn't get it in this.
Yeah, I didn't write it well.
Hassan. You said if we distribute iPads to children who don't have access to internet, so they don't have access to internet. So how they can benefit from iPads?
Oh, because iPads, they have the classes like stored, saved in them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And with that program, you could even train an educator to be sent on site for a period of time, and he will make sure that the class will be delivered without internet. So he could create like small groups or something like that, go to children in the village or something like that. So there's ways to find the alternative, but at least the materials is in the iPad. Okay, so I'm going to share again my screen. Let's go back to the training.
We still have one group or not?
Oh, sorry. Do we have more groups?
We still have one. The first group.
Yeah, we are.
Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
Okay, so our issue was waste management in littoral areas. Our theory of change is if we add trash cans to littoral areas in Agadir, then beach users will be encouraged to throw their trash in the cans because most of users like to see trash cans nearby.
I don't think they need to see trash cans, but you can, it entices people to throw trash when you have a trash can next to you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't find any other excuse. But yeah, it's great. If you want to resolve the issue of trash in the littoral, just put more trash cans.
Yep.
And that's an action that you guys can do. You can do a partnership with the local authorities, provide them with a plan, even create those trash cans so that it's in a material that is recyclable, create a system of recycling that trash that will be collected from the trash can, because we can imagine that in a beach, it will be a lot of cans, wrapping for food, so stuff that can be recycled, not necessarily, like a trash that can be found next to houses. So maybe a system of recycling can be designed around this trash can system. But this is a part of the solution, something very actionable, and that seems way too simple. So that's why you have all the chances to make it happen. And even if the local authorities do not allow you, do not want to partner with you, maybe you can create those trash can, partner with a private company so that they get their advertisement on each trash can, and you guys just make sure that you provide with the manpower to install them in several parts of the beaches of Agadir. So these are the ideas that you can create that are very simple, but they follow a logic. So if are there any questions?
For me, I just want to ask like a small question, Leila. Like the theory of change is always like, what is the problem and what is the solution? Is that right?
Yeah.
We start from the problem or we start with the solution. We say, if we did this, we will not have this, or if we did this, we will not have this, or so like, is it the solution with the results or the problem with the solution?
Well, these are different methodologies about the way you can resolve a conflict. So you can have what we call the conflict tree. So basically you start with the roots of the problem. It's basically like a real drawing. I'm going to draw it here. So you start with the root of the problem, and here you're going to list all the roots of your problem. And then You have the core of the problem. And then you have the leaves. How your problem relates to other issues. So if you draw this big tree full of issues, then you are able to say, okay, my theory of change, I want it to work on this route or on that specific leaf. And then I can draw my theory of change. So you start with the problem. If you're an organization with your mission already set up, you guys already know what you're doing. You're already working on providing women with training. But you want to reach out to more individuals, or you want to change region, or you want to change the topic a little bit. Then, but you have your solution. You cannot change your solution because you already have all the resources. Your staff is training for that solution. So it would be a big investment to redefine yourself as an organization. Then you start to look into you dive in on how what kind of opportunity your solution can bring. What kind of opportunity to what kind of problem? So you can take the problem from two sides, either by the beginning or by the end. But at the end, you always have to create that causal link. Okay? So it doesn't really matter. It all depends about who you are, what resources you have, and how much investment you can make. So keep that theory of change in mind. And while we're thinking about it, because we're still going to work on it, I want you to think about the specific goal that can be driven out of this theory of change. So some of you have been working on waste management. What is your specific goal? Your specific goal should be about having a figure, an amount of people that will be on board with your project. You want to see a specific change in the region of Agadir. Remember that table? So normally you should all see my screen, right? It's working, Omar? So my rationale is my theory of change. The rationale that we've been working on is my theory of change. From that, I will need to develop my global objective. That means that the objective I want I want to aim at with a very long-term impact. I may not reach it, but at least in the future, I know I'm contributing to it. Providing beans on the littoral beaches, I'm contributing to the environment, the waste management of Morocco. I'm making sure that summertime doesn't impact the littoral in a negative way. I want to lower down the effect of tourism, of holidays on the littoral. What would be my specific objective? In my specific objectives, I need to create the environment that allow me to contribute to that larger objective. Less trash on the beach. We can actually see it. More people that have changed their behavior. A percentage of individuals, more people that are agreeing and more aware of the importance of waste management. What will be my result? Here, I want to look at the specific change, the specific modification my intervention will create during the lifetime of the project, which will be, in that case, a number of trash cans being installed in different areas. People that are promoting my project, local authorities that are on board with me. what would be the activities that I would need to create to reach that results? Create the trash cans. Draft and sign a memorandum with the local authorities. Train the local authorities about waste management. All those components, the activities, the result, the specific objectives, the global objectives, inform my rationale, help me do my rationale. So I would like us to try a little game. So I took the example of the waste management, but I would like you all to go back into your draft and now try to define what will be the global objective, the specific objective, the result, and the activities for your theory of change. Can we go back into break rooms? Yes, so let's go with the first group. Who is ready and wants to share with us their log frame?
My group.
My group.
Go ahead.
Who's here? Okay, Khawla. I will share my screen, Khawla, and then you can talk.
Rahim, we're still not ready.
It's too late.
It's okay. We don't have to be ready like 100%. You know.
Okay, we can do that. Let's go.
Alors, your theory of change was about increasing youth participation in political life. So go ahead, present your theory of your log frame.
So our main goal is to improve youth engagement in political level.
Okay.
The objectives are to raise awareness among youth in the field of politics.
Mm-hmm.
The expected result of it is youth have increased knowledge about political sphere.
Mm-hmm.
The activity, the first activity we could think of is intensive social media campaign about the importance of youth engagement in the political field.
Mhm.
Then we have the second objective, which is encourage youth to vote and build trust between youth and current politicians.
Okay.
We
Any
have a lot of results or activities to do that.
Thank you. But thank you. This is great. This looks really great. Guys, any comments?
It's great.
Looks nice, right? Like it looks things that are actionable and actually make sense. There is a logic that flows from it. You can read it from top to down, and you think how one action can have a set of consequences, but you can also read it from bottom to up. And you see that, yeah, by maybe doing this social campaign, people will be more aware, more interested, and they will be much more engaging with political life. And that will help the organization fulfill its main goal. So it's great. And at the end, so this is basically one of the documents that you have to submit to donors, or that you have to share among the team, so that everyone is on board on the project and know exactly what they are doing. So once you master that log frame, it's a tool of communication. It helps you show to your partners, to your colleagues, what you are trying to do. And then what you can do is just refine it a little bit more. As I was saying to another group, usually those project logic, goals, activities, and so on, we use fancy names, cool names to name that activity. Like an intensive campaign on political life become an engagement campaign, or an empowering vocal youth competition. You know, it comes into, you have to use a little bit of marketing and to try to make it very interesting and exciting. But it's basically, here we have the definition and the core of it. So this is great. Can we move on to another group?
Group 3. Hatim?
Hatim, go for it.
Okay. Can you give me guys the up hand so I can share my screen? I can go through. No need to share the screen. Okay, so for our project, so our main goal is to okay. Wait, hold on. Okay, here we go. Okay, so our main goals is to create opportunities for rural abuse women to be more likely hired or / employed. The objective number one, in order to achieve this goal, so we need to equip these women with the necessary skills and knowledge, especially like soft skills, entrepreneurial skills. Our expected results is that these women will be more aware first about the opportunities offered by their local communities, and gain the necessary skills to create a job. The activity number one, since like the majority of women in the rural areas, we have this problem of illiteracy and so on. So we kind of like going to give them a literacy workshop and some soft skills workshops. That's first. And second thing is, when we're going to be more aware about what our community, local community can offer us, and we can take advantage, so we can create like a job, local products, and so on. So we're going to move to workshops where we're going to move deep into the marketing, how we're going to do the marketing of our projects, how we're going to do communication, selling, and maybe going even through like, not sell to the local population, maybe to other local communities like so yeah, so that's the thing. Thank you guys.
Looks good. No, can you keep it on? Can you just keep it on? to do it exactly? Where do you get that information from? So let's look more precisely into what it looks like. An indicator is a set of questions that you then summarize into a number, into a figure. So your indicator follow what we usually call the SMART approach. SMART approach is an acronym for 5 criteria of what makes a good indicator. The S is for specific. Does our indicator measure what we want? When we say that we are going to measure the increase of awareness or that we want youth to be more engaged in political life, how are we going to measure that? Where do we get that information? Then it also forces us to take a decision into the level of disaggregation. Disaggregation means how we are going to look at that group and divide it into smaller groups. So a group, for example, you guys are the participants, you are the alumni. But what if I want to look more precisely into who you are? So I'm going to look at how many girls are in that training. How many people wearing glasses are in that training? How many people who have children are in that training? And I'm dividing you into groups. And that helps me get a very precise view about my target, my outreach. Does my indicator connect to the goal? By getting the data, by collecting numbers, am I still connected to the goal that I'm trying to improve, to reach? Measurable. Is the change that I'm reporting on verifiable? Meaning, if someone external comes in and look at your project and you tell them, we helped 25 young children in the rural area of XYZ to have access to education while classes have stopped because of COVID. Can I check that? Can I know the source of that information? Do you have archives for it? Does the data show a change? Here we are interested in understanding an information out of this data. What does that data tell us? In 2015, people living, young people, there were only 18 young people living in rural areas that didn't have access to school or didn't have access to continuous education. In 2020, we have 100 of children that don't have access to continuous education. What does that change tells us about the environment? There is a shift that happened, and I can explain it. And here I'm putting you as a reference the work of Hans Rosling. He's an amazing speaker, amazing statistician. There are tons of videos of him on YouTube where he's explaining how to read data. When you say, for example, that 2 million of people are contaminated by COVID, that number can be either very frightening or, on the contrary, quite reassuring if we compare it to another set of data. If you compare it to a set of data of number of people who die from airplane, you see that actually COVID is not that deadly. Or on the contrary, that for a virus, COVID has been very deadly compared to other viruses. It's all about what you want that figures and that numbers to tell you and help you tell you what kind of story you want to share. So go to the work of, oops, no, that's not what I wanted. Go to the work of Hans Rosling if you want to know more about how to read data, how to present data. He sadly passed away, but his materials are very approachable, They are translated in English. I saw some videos as well translated in Arabic. So you could easily have access to his work. Yeah, Hans Rosling. Normally it's written on the PowerPoint. Hans Rosling. Does the data include the context? When we say that women are look for empowerment, do we define that empowerment? Is the empowerment of today the same as 10 years ago? Are women wanting the same thing? When we talk about youth engagement with political life or representation with political life, are we speaking about the same thing as well? So define your data and include it within a specific context. Do partners of the project agree on your rationale? So you provided the theory of change and you set some indicators to measure it. Let's take again the example of women empowerment. And you want to measure whether in rural areas women are empowered, but you have an idea of empowerment that is quite modern, quite urban. And if you confront that idea of empowerment with what the community thinks, they tell you, hey, we don't want that kind of empowerment. We don't want women to be completely liberated and to act to be completely emancipated. We want empowerment, but this is the idea we have of empowerment. Try to understand that. Understand how what women in those areas want, and use that as part of your indicator. So it helps you extract numbers in a much more relevant way. So your data must be measurable. Remember the question of Suaid at the beginning. What if you start a project and mid-course of the project, your community tells you that actually this is not helpful. What we don't want what you're trying to do. Work with them to find the indicators that helps you extract some results out of your project, even though the initial perception about the project is different. Achievable, attainable, and attributable. What do we mean by that? We mean that we want to make sure that we can connect the change that we are observing with the activity. 25 children have an iPad, and we see that at the end of the year, 25 children have increased their knowledge in basic education. They can count, they can read, they read better, they count better, and they can pass a class. We can link that. It's because they had access to continuous education. It's because we gave them 25 iPads. So what is the link between your contribution and the one of your partner? Have you been able to achieve some success because the authorities have helped you? Is it because your partner in the project, another association, has helped you as well, that you are able to account for this success? Or is it all on your own? Relevant. Is the data relevant according to the context? I'm taking again the example of earlier about empowerment. Make sure that the change you want to integrate in that community will be accepted, so it will last in the long term. What do the beneficiary want? How do you know? How have you been asking them? What kind of question did you ask them? Where is your data to prove that they actually agree on what you're saying? Is the indicator linked to the activity or something else? Maybe actually the lack of pollution or the reduction of pollution in the last 3 months has nothing to do with the association's work, but it's just because people were stuck in their home. So you cannot claim as an association that, hey, I saved the world, I cleaned the beaches. No. It's not you. People were just stuck in their home. And as soon as they came out, the problem remained. Timely. Are you able to collect the information during the project? So you're planning to do a project that will last a year and that you will collect data about youth engagement, political engagement during the 4 years before the election. Is that really relevant? Like, is it something that will provide you some answer, or should you wait till you have some election coming ahead so you can create a momentum and use that momentum to collect information? So when is the best time to collect information? When is the best time to do your project? Are the sources known? The sources of your information known? For this, for those of you who are doing PhDs or who have done masters, you all know about the rules of referencing, of citations. You always have to give credit to the authors, the experts, the researchers, the individuals that help you understand the situation. It doesn't mean that what you are doing is irrelevant, but it's about providing credit and being able to go back to that information if we want more precision. Okay, so I'm reading a report on women empowerment, and I see that women feel more empowered. But where did it happen? When? In which area? Who were the women who were asked questions? I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of COVID, there was this huge controversy about whether hydroxychloroquine was working or not. And there was that one study that came out that said that it's not working. And it used data. So it used some data from several hospitals and claimed that the analysis of this data said that hydroxychloroquine is not working. But then people start to look at the sources of that data. And they found that most of the hospitals that have been providing that data were not using hydroxychloroquine. So that's what, it has no link, that data had no link with the question they were researching, whether a drug is working or not. And that research has been made irrelevant because it didn't have the right source of information. In project management, it's the same. In project monitoring and evaluation, it's the same. You have to be able to understand where your data is coming from. So if we want to check, if you want to check again that the same situation is true, if you want to make comparison, you are able to go back to the source of your initial data. Finally, when is the best time to collect the data? So we spoke about this a little bit, 15 minutes for the whole training. Okay, so yeah, when is the best time to collect the data? You should think about a calendar. So I'm going to wrap up really quickly about each of the other slides so that we don't run over time. We differentiate different types of indicators, what we call output indicators, outcome indicators, and impact indicator. In the output indicator, we're looking at what you're bringing. An output is what you bring. It's usually what are what processes have you been using in the project to make sure you get some result. The outcome indicator relates to your result. So you need some output to be able to gain outcome. And finally, impact. So following the output, so your investment and then the outcome, the result, you get impact. It may be an impact that is beyond your project. So what can we measure? There are different things that we could measure. We could either measure knowledge, that is the level of understanding of an individual on a project, your perception, what do people think about a specific concept, how do they feel, their point of view or belief, attitude, their disposition. Will people be able to change their behavior if we provide them with trash cans? Capacity. Are women able to find a job if we give them training? Behavior. Are we going to, if we show people, some individuals, the way to act, to behave, or to communicate, are there going to be any change on their behavior? Will there be a reduction of the domestic violence if men and women are better equipped to deal with their issues. So you have to think of a set of indicator. Oh yeah. I wanted to do this exercise where I wanted you to think of a set of indicator for your project. We're going to leave it. But if you want to do it, you can take the table, and for each goal, objective, result, you start to think of an indicator. So what would the indicator look like? It could look, so here I'm putting one table as an example. It could look at a quantitative or a qualitative information. By quantitative, we mean numbers, figures, facts, data, demographics, statistics. By qualitative, we're looking more for a change of perception, a change of knowledge, a percentage that shows an increase, something that has moved from a situation, from a point A to point B. So we distinguish between quantitative data and qualitative data. The quantitative data is following a much more deductive reasoning. I'm deducting from a situation. I'm looking at a landscape, a scenery, and I'm trying to say, okay, what am I seeing? Okay, I see a bunch of young people. There are few men, few women. Some of them are wearing glasses. That analysis is very flat, very factual. And I'm having an outsider perspective. I'm not a part of you. I do not know who you are. And I'm not trying to dig too much into knowing who you are, why you got interested in that training, what motivated you. Even that training for me is very neutral. It's a neutral environment. But I'm just interested in knowing the number of participants. This is quantitative. So I'm going to use a survey, demographic data. For example, we can think of the HCP statistic. We can think of pre and post test. But in a qualitative approach, I'm more interested in an inductive method. That means that I'm going to make a broad generalization from a specific observation. Okay, so I see that at least 4 people have glasses on a Saturday. That means that some people are either reading a lot, that people who are interested in training read a lot, they have a poor sight, or they like to have an accessory, to use an accessory, and they use glasses as a fashion trend. And I could make a lot of conclusion out of that. A broad generalization from a small observation. But this time, I'm having an insider perspective. So I'm going to ask you a question. What does the glasses mean for you? Why did you want to enroll in that training in the first place? What did you want to learn? And I'm very environment sensitive. And I'm aware that this training is online. And the first time that it's online, I'm thinking, okay, having 20 people on a Saturday morning for an online training. Now I can analyze that and think, is it a good number? Or is it a number that is actually quite low? Usually training gets much more on Saturday morning online. So here I'm using qualitative approach to create a narrative, to create a story. And to do that, I have different tools. I can use interviews or focus groups. Interviews, you can think of your daily talk show where you see how the interviewer interacts with the interviewee. He just asks questions and waits, observe the reaction to the question. That's what I will do as well. And I will take some notes. So here, let's go back to the table of logical intervention. If I'm looking at my objective, which is I want my team to be the greatest team of history. So I'm going to look for indicators. Among them will be the number of match, the number of players who scored a goal, the percentage of football fans who feel inspired by my team. How am I going to get that number, that percentage? So let's say number of match, number of players who score a goal is easy. I can just count them. I can look at reports. But for the percentage of football fans who feel inspired, I will have to ask questions to the fan and make observation and ask them about the way the team is reacting to them. Maybe the football team is having a great social media campaign. It has a lot of interaction. It respects its fans. It recognizes them. And I'm writing all this down, and I'm taking notes, and I'm analyzing it. So I can do it through the interviews, focus groups. So in terms of analysis, what we want is that we want to present a clear instruction and test hypothesis. So you want to make sure that your methodology to get the data is clear and that it tests the hypothesis of the beginning, that is the theory of change. Was that theory of change true? So we have two ways of doing I just want to focus here on the quantitative part and giving you the example of how you can use Excel to make sure that you can get a comparison. Remember at the beginning of this training, I shared with you a pre-test. So you answered some question on a questionnaire. That question has been recorded and I'm gonna grade it. That will provide me data before the training. After this training, I'm gonna send you again that questionnaire and I'm gonna compare the result you get after you had the training with me compared to the before moment when you fill that first questionnaire. And I will compare those two figures. So I have, let's say, 10% at the beginning of individuals that had a correct answer to the questionnaires. But at the end of the training, I have 60% of the individual who answered correctly. If I do a comparison using an equation that we don't have to see today, but it's basically a variation, I'm going to compare first data with the data at the beginning with the data at the end. I can create a percentage out of that. We can talk about this again later on. There's so much we can talk about related to M&E, but this relates to just an equation of variation change. So you compare the last data with the first data. But remember as well, if you are stuck with data that are unsatisfying, you can always analyze this information in a way that puts your project under the best light. And that's what is expected to do with donors. So fine, your project hasn't been able to reach as many people as you wanted. However, you managed to overcome the obstacle of COVID. You still managed to get some people gathered together despite the inability to meet face to face. So data should reflect a progression, a progressive decision. And it should enable you at the end to propose a new hypothesis. It's supposed to improve future initiatives and draw lessons. Do not be afraid of the data, same way that you shouldn't be afraid of the questions that shake your project, that shake your initial idea. At the beginning of the training, and don't worry, I'm going to leave you a floor for the questions, but I just want to make sure that we can go through these different steps. At the beginning of the training, someone has asked about ethics yesterday, and they were asking about how about informed consent. In M&E, we do have a guideline to help us ensure that we respect ethics. It's called the Do No Harm Guidelines. So in a way, we can ask ourselves, how am I going to hurt a community? I'm just here to help. Like, they're already lucky I'm helping them. Like that, I'm paying attention to them. But remember, if you're misunderstanding the context, the underlying context that can lead to a conflict or that can lead to a disequilibrium, your action may not be as positive as you would expect it to be. Also, remember that in every resolution of conflict situation, you need to create balance, not create an imbalance. I direct you for that to the amazing project He Without She. It was a UN campaign dealing with women empowerment. So they were working on women empowerment, which is great, but we don't want to exclude men as well from that project. The empowerment of one group shouldn't mean to undermine another group. So here it's also where it's important for you to think how your project can also impact other individuals. And do not overlook local resources. Fair enough, the community you're trying to help are probably isolated and marginalized, but that doesn't mean that they have nothing to do in your project. They can, on the contrary, be your best ally to help the community you're trying to help. They are personally invested. They will want to do good work because they will be the first one to benefit from it. Do you have any question at that stage? If you have any question, I know I went very quickly, so let's just make sure that I can go back to any point that was made. No question? Okay, so now let's go to a part that should be very important for you, which is how to write the M&E narrative. This is very important for you because this is how you are able to get the grant. Most of the grant applications are requiring applicants to submit a short paragraph to show their approach to ensure that their project will be using the resources and that you know what you're doing. So that narrative should describe the project monitoring as well as the, sorry, I have the chat on the, yeah, as well as the planned evaluation. When I read an M&E narrative, I should be able to have all the answers I'm looking for, that the action is relevant, that you have I have confidence in your ability to undertake that project. So you are expected to provide a plan for the quality, to describe your monitoring system, and to detail the plan of evaluation. There is no better way to know exactly what to do by showing an example. So let's look into one. Here, I've wrote two examples of M&E narrative. The two are about the same project. However, in one, there is some information that are lacking, and in the other one, those information are mentioned. And that second example has much more chance to be selected by a donor. So I'm not going to look at the example number one, but Omar will share with you these two narratives, so you will have all the time to see the differences. But let's look into the example number two, which has all the information that should be included. Here, I took the example of AGTCD. And I wrote for them an M&E narrative. They are committed to using an M&E system to ensure high standard accountability and program quality. This is kind of a blah blah, like so far we don't really know if they are going to do it or not. So we want some proof. The organization is also committed to maximize the impact of its program. Okay, still no proof for that. Where is the system? Continuous monitoring and evaluation throughout the project cycle will ensure the high quality implementation of activities and provide swift feedback on effectiveness, which will contribute to the development of best practice. Still no plan, quite generalistic language. But then, upon the launch of the initiative, so from the beginning of the program, before the activity starts, a complete monitoring and evaluation plan will be developed by the monitoring and evaluation specialist. We have an answer about the who and the what. Before the program starts, an M&E specialist will work on a baseline. The M&E plan on a plan. The M&E plan will determine a specific indicator for each objective and activity that will be used to measure success and impact. Specific quantitative and qualitative tools will also be created by the M&E specialist, the what and the who, in order to measure each indicator. So we know that each indicator will be specific to the context. Finally, the M&E will include a detailed timeline of all monitoring and evaluation that will occur throughout the project. We have the contextualization as well as the plan over time. They are going to provide that. At least they are aware that they are providing it. While the final M&E tool will be identified and created during the startup phase, so remember this is before the program started, monitoring and evaluation will rely on the following. So here we have a set of tools that will be used for the project, even if the project is not defined yet, but they already know that there are some tools that can be relevant. Pre and post test, so we know that there will be quantitative methods. And they even have a COVID plan. Due to sanitary situation, questionnaires will be distributed online using Google Form. So they know that they won't have access to people, but they still have a plan for it. Attendance record. Depending on the activity and the indicator, participants will be counted and disaggregated according to the log frame developed in the M&E plan. Here again, the plan is not defined, but we know, we are aware of this, that this is a requirement, and we have a plan for it. Activity reports. Depending on the activity and the indicator, the participant will be counted and disaggregated. Again, like it's just a repeat of the same sentence, but still in the activity report, they are telling us that they are going to provide specific data. So they share disaggregation information. Social media measurement. Here it's an interesting paragraph because they tell us about the social media measurement, how they are going to measure the campaign, the online campaign. And they are defining those concepts that are needed to provide meaning to data. So when you have someone who is liking a video, okay, how do you call that? How are you going to count this information? If someone is commenting on a video, what does it tell us about their perception of the video? So they are interested in engagement and awareness, and they are defining monitoring concepts. The final evaluation will be conducted by an external evaluator. They are aware as well that the project will close, and they are looking for a transparency system to make sure that the data that they will, the lesson learned will be shared by someone who is external to the project. So there will be the most neutral analysis as possible. If you look back into the first example, it's very short. It does have some information about the tools, but doesn't tell us exactly how those tools are going to be used, whether they're going to be any disaggregation. And it's a very generalistic language. It's not related at all to the specificity of the project. In the social measurement, media measurement, for example, there's no definition of those M&E concepts. So they said they're going to measure online campaign, but how? What would it mean? But if you include it in your M&E narrative, your donor is aware that you have done some homework, understanding the difference between engagement, awareness. I'm going to finish here. So I'm going to leave the floor open for questions. I know it's 1:05. So thank you all for your attention. And I hope you have a lot of questions and that training has been useful for you guys.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So for the beneficiaries, I know that it's really important to have pre and post evaluations, like forms, either written or like online versions. But do you think we need also like mid evaluations, like in the middle of the training or of the whole project? Or
are you talking about your Amal profit, for example, the work you're doing?
Yes.
So let's take this as an example. You guys are doing training those women.
Yes.
You can do pre and post test to know what they know before they have undertake a training. and after, whether they gain the skills. Okay, so you can measure the percentage of skill increase that they gain through your program. You can also interview some of them to also understand the perception that they have, that they acquired as part of gaining skills in empowering them. So you can have the pre and post test that gives you quantitative data, and then you can use as well interviews or focus group with some of the women, only the young one or the oldest one, the one that are divorced, the one that were abused, and make snapshot evaluation for each group. Does that help, right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So in the focus group, the difference between a focus group and an interview, I have a set of questions and I want their opinion. In a focus group, I want to see how my question will also create a reaction among people. So for example, here, I'm not doing a focus group. The focus group is usually around 5 to 6 people, not too much, but at the same time, you have to get a good cohort. And I sometimes just throw a question. I say, okay, so what is your meaning? What is your definition about freedom? And I just see how each one respond. And then I hold on someone's answer and I ask someone else, do you guys agree with what he just said? Do you agree about this definition of freedom? And this is how a focus group creates engagement between each other. So my interest is not much more about the answer, it's about the reaction between each members of the focus groups. Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
I don't know if someone else has a question or comment or any kind of intervention. If not, maybe I'll give the floor like to Leila to sum up, or Lubna to say something, or Steve, before we close up this second seminar of our project management. This is the second workshop of the project management seminar, part of the Alumni Connect campaign. So any last questions? It's very loud out here, Leila.
Too much. I mean, I had to mute everyone.
There's actually a question in the chat box.
Yep.
How much time focus group may take? Usually we set around 2.5 hours. For an interview, it's around 90 minutes. 2.5 hours would be because also there is a coffee break, you introduce people, you make it quite casual. And if you're someone like me who tries to make a joke every 5 minutes, it can last quite long. But yeah, around 2.5 hours. There are not enough, not any of those tools are enough. So you can combine pre-test, data, research, desk research, a focus group, interviews all together. All of them form part of your investigation. So you use really the term tools is used accurately here. There are tools, and sometimes to start a car, you need several tools. You can't just do it with one hammer. You also need stuff. I'm terrible in mechanic, but you need different tools. And focus group, it can also be different type of tools. Like these are not, the one I presented are not the only one. You can sometimes have observation. I've worked with children, and in that project, we couldn't really ask them questions because it could have been a bit awkward, and they may not have perceived it very well. So we just used observation. They were playing and we were observing to see how they were reacting to some situation. So there are different tools, and there are a lot of publication as well about those different tools. And also now there is a big conversation that is happening about doing an M&E with marginalized communities, in the way that how to be much more ethical, how to, you know, because usually this field came from the social science perspective, where you would have an anthropologist coming, observing, taking notes, and it could be quite awkward. But now there is a decolonial movement of how to reframe those tools in a way that can also collect data, but without taking the individuals you are looking at as just cobaye of an experiment.
So there's no question. Thank you, Leila, once again. It was very enriching, fulfilling, and beneficial. I think I hope the participant had the knowledge or the capacities or the tools they need to work on their M&E plans in their respective programs or NGOs. It was really enjoyable to have you in those 6 hours, and we'll keep working together in the following weeks and days, inshallah. So I'll give the floor to Lubna or to Steve or anyone else if they want to say something before we close up this second workshop.
Thank you, Omar. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I would just say really quickly, you know, you saw an example of the M&E plan, and, you know, Leila went very quickly over the blah, blah. You know, don't put blah, blah in a proposal, because, you know, all it does is it makes me bored and want to put the proposal to the side. So go straight to your plan. Don't tell me how committed you are to M&E. Show me. That's the only thing I have to say. I'll let Lubna say goodbye for the embassy. But thanks everybody for participating in this, and thank you so much, Leila, for leading the discussion.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you again, Leila, and we're happy to have you over this online seminar. We'd have loved to see you face to face, but hopefully in the near future we can meet again, and you can meet with Leila face to face and really get to know her fun spirit. And as she said, she could be a mentor. Please take advantage of her as a resource, and if you have questions, follow up. She means it when she said that she can follow up with you, that she can talk to you afterwards and give you feedback. So take advantage of that. And thank you guys for being on time, for being engaged for an online seminar like this. And we wish you a good rest of your weekend, and enjoy your weekend. And goodbye.